Welcome to another edition of Boxing Info. I'm your host, The Islander. Alright, it's been a couple of weeks, and let's go do a review and then do the big preview, shall we? A couple of weeks ago, Kelly Pavlik put his undisputed, in my mind undisputed, middleweight title on the linear title on the line against Sergio Martinez. And the fight unrolled similar to the way I thought it would. Another great performance by Martinez. You know, one of the things about, and I go back to the Martinez fight with Paul Williams, and I said that, you know, both guys delivered like we're not used to delivering. You know, he delivers every time out. And, you know, the kind of boxing he does, it's not the kind you get, you know, you just, you know, get all angsty about, because you never know what he's going to do when he darts in and darts out. And I thought, you know, just like Harold Littman had the fight scored, you know, it was a, you know, 4-point fight for Martinez, 3 or 4 point fight. The knockdown kind of questionable that Pavlik scored in, you know, the seventh round, the 8th round, or whatnot. But the cuts did play a factor in the fight. But I knew that Martinez was going to out-quick him, out-slick him, and, you know, basically all he needed to do was stay away from one punch, and that was the Pavlik right hand. Notebook testing over there, and somebody on Justin TV is running basically the Shane Mosley fights back to back to back. So really good win for Martinez. Probably going to go back down to 154 where it fights with Cotto or Yuri Foreman or any number of guys, or Paul Williams, a rematch with Paul Williams, you know, exist. Corey Spinks, any number of guys. And, you know, the middleweight division just looks like it's limp. You know, Pavlik used, well, he not after the fight, but, you know, there's rumblings that he was having trouble making weight, or it may have weakened him in this and that. You know, he looks sloppy in his fights over the 160-pound limit. So, you know, I think what's happening now with him is, as he ups the skill level of his opponents, Bernard Hopkins, you know, Jermaine Taylor, Sergio Martinez, flaws in his game are emerging. Flaws in which a championship caliber fighter can expose and basically use against him. Good win for Martinez. This past weekend, doubleheader on HBO, and yeah, before I forget, because I have none of this written down, Alfredo Angulo scored an impressive 11th round stoppage over Joel Julio. You know, I don't understand for the life of me, if you're Joel Julio, when did he become a runner? He's been I'm not saying a runner, but a mover. How about a mover? A mover and a shaker. Because he's a guy who came up out of nowhere, was the ESPN Prospect of the Year, and was knocking guys flat. And if you're going to beat Angulo, or if you're going to beat James Kirkland, who he was also stopped by, you're not going to beat them by letting them come to you. And the analogy that Kellerman used during that fight about it looking like, you know, Margarito and Cotto, is that you need to back him up to beat him. And I would really love to see Angulo, even though Kirkland's, you know, basically away on legal trouble, I would like to see Angulo fight Kirkland, because I want to see which one of them would take the backward step. My gut tells me it's going to be Kirkland, but you never know, because you never know how one guy's going to take the other one's power. Cintron was lucky enough to get, I guess that Angulo was green enough for him to basically pull off what he did by moving and shaking and getting away from him. But I don't think until somebody stands in the fire and makes Angulo back up, they're not gonna beat him. You can win without beating him, is what I'm saying, and that's what I think Cintron did. But it was a fight that I thought Julio could have won if he would have sat down on his punches and basically made Angulo, forced Angulo back, like, you know, like Mosley did to Margarito. The main event was Cristobal Arreola taking on Tomas Adamek. You know, I secretly kind of wanted Adamek to win this fight. I thought it could go either way, and I didn't have, you know, and basically at different times in the fight, it looked like either guy could win, and the fight swung back and forth. I don't think the decision was as wide as some of the judges had it, but I thought a solid 7-5, solid, you know, 6-4, 6-5-1, or even 8-4 at a stretch was what Adamek had gotten. And, you know, as far as the scoring in that fight, I agree with Kellerman. I couldn't score the first round for Arreola, but there was a round that Harold Littman scored for Adamek. I don't know if it was the 9th or 10th, where I thought Arreola did a lot of work in that round, and just a brief rally at the end of the round is not enough to steal the round away from Arreola. So I had the same score Harold Letterman did. I just had 2 rounds flip-flopped in that fight. And I think the first I gave to Adamek, and I think it was either 9th or 10th I gave to Arreola, because I thought he'd done way too much work in the beginning of the middle of the round for it to be overdone. Looks like the 8th round, the end of this fight with Mosley and Margarito. And I just think that, you know, it's a good win for Adamek. You know, I'd be very concerned if I was an Arreola fan and an Arreola supporter, because once again, the sharper puncher got to him, and I think that if Adamek would have really applied himself a little bit more, like he did when Arreola hurt him a couple times in the middle of the fight, he may have been able to stop him on cuts, because he busted him up without really having a high punch output. And you know, that guy, he's got heavy fists, Adamek, and I really would think a fight with him and David Haye would be very interesting. You know, I personally think that people undersell Adamek and oversell Haye, which I apologize to everybody because I didn't cover the Haye-Ruiz fight. It was just too much to, you know, fit into the 24 minutes of the last video. For those of you, most of you already do know that David Haye successfully defended his title by a 10th round stoppage of John Ruiz, who has since announced his retirement, scoring 3 knockdowns in a very technically sound beatdown of John Ruiz. Something that nobody else has been able to do, not since David Tua blasted him out in about 20 seconds. But, you know, beating on Nikolai Valuev and beating on John Ruiz isn't the same as mixing with the Klitschkos or mixing with Adamek. Not that Adamek, I don't think Adamek stands a real good chance against the Klitschkos. I do think that he stands a 50% or better chance against David Haye, because I think Adamek takes a better punch, and I think that David Haye's a large target, just like Arreola was. Not as big, but he's a larger target for Adamek to hit. Good win for Tomas Adamek. He's right in the mix in the heavyweight division. You know, don't worry about the Klitschkos, because one of the things is they're not going to stay young forever. They're already kind of old. And as Vitaly has shown, they're not going to stay healthy forever. So it's not going to be long before nature takes its course on them. You know, if somebody else can't beat them. And oh yeah, it's the 9th round. Is the end of the road for Margarito. And in any event, as we move forward, I just think that the heavyweight division, if you can look at it through some different colored glasses, you can see little bright spots here and there. It's just that the delicate sequence of events has to work itself out for it to get better. And moving forward with the schedule for this week, got some big things to cover. It's April 30th, Telefutura. I'm not sure if no, I don't have that. I have Telemundo. But for those of you who have Telefutura, Solo Boxeo Tecate, Robert Guerrero is taking on Roberto Arrieta, 10-round lightweight fight. Heading that card. Should be a good fight. I expect Guerrero to come through it with relative ease. Telemundo that same night in Miami, the one I do have, William Gonzalez of Bantamweight War fame, I think with Johnny Gonzalez in a terrific 3-round fight, taking on Jose Luis Arreza, 12-round Bantamweight fight. In Tokyo on the 30th. Wait, that's Friday night? I'm losing track of my days, because today is Wednesday the 28th. That's going to be on Friday. In Tokyo, Hozumi Hasegawa taking on Fernando Montiel. 12 rounds for Hasegawa's WBC Bantamweight title. I'm surprised this isn't a unification fight. I see this fight going one of two ways. And here's the way it usually happens in these fights. Either Hasegawa is the goods, like Diolde keeps harping on, or he's going to be exposed. Now here's the problem I find in this. Montiel is not the fighter he used to be. But an advantage that Montiel has, that all these other fighters who have gone to Japan or gone to Asia to fight for a title, is that he's done it before. He's fought in the flames, he's been in rough, he's been in deep water, he's very experienced. So the thing is that the advantage that Hasegawa has when a Latin American or an American fighter comes over to face him, he doesn't have over Montiel. So none of this, he does have a home court advantage to some extent, but not the monstrous extent that these Thai fighters have, you know, had over the past 30, 40, 50 years, when an American or a Latin American fighter comes over there and has severe culture shock. Montiel's done it before. My mind tells me Hasegawa is going to win this fight and probably win it by a decision. My gut tells me that Montiel is going to find an opening and exploit it. I don't think that Montiel is the same fighter he was when he knocked out Martin Castillo in the big stage on the Kelly Pavlik, Jermaine Taylor 2 undercard. I just don't see that happening. But again, this is a toss-up. I'm leaning towards Hasegawa by a decision. Don't be surprised if Montiel stops him. I'd be very surprised of all the scenarios if Hasegawa stops Montiel. That would be the least likely scenario that I would put forward. The most likely in this order, because I was watching some tennis and they were going with these in the U.S. Open, and they're going with this result, and they're like, this is the least likely result of the 6 results. And I'm thinking 6. Well, they've got, straight sets, 4 sets, 5 sets one way, straight sets, 4 sets, anyway, never mind. Of the 4 results, Hasegawa decision, Montiel stoppage, Montiel decision, Hasegawa stoppage. In that order. I will be shocked if Hasegawa stops Montiel. I wouldn't say shocked, I'd be surprised. I'd be surprised if Montiel wins a decision. And I'll just leave it at that. I expect Hasegawa to win a decision. Okay, it's going to be a very good technical fight. It's just whether or not Montiel still has the tools. 2.5 years ago I would have said this is no match, that Montiel is going to steamroll him. But they've gone in opposite directions. Hasegawa's gotten better, Montiel has plateaued and even maybe teetered off a little bit. And I just think in recent fights, Hasegawa's looked better. Alright, that brings us to the granddaddy of them all, the HBO pay-per-view extravaganza. And I've been meaning to ask you guys this, and be very honest about this for maybe in the future. I ran this idea across some of my friends and my wife didn't like the idea, but I'm going to run it by you guys, and I really want to see what you have to say about this. If I was to buy, or say not me, say somebody else, some entity was to buy the Shane Mosley, Floyd Mayweather pay-per-view card, and some way, hypothetically now, we would upload it to the internet. How many of you, with about a month's notice, if I told you this, would send me an email, and I would send you back an address and a name, and you name and address, and you basically fold up a $5 bill in a piece of paper so nobody knows it's a $5 bill, and mail you $5 to an address that I tell you to, and you will get an email with a website and a link to the fight on fight night. The link is not going to be Floyd Mayweather versus Shane Mosley, obviously. It's going to be something very well hidden and in a place that nobody would expect, and it would be so private that only you and whoever you basically share this with, each person that basically sends in $5 will get an email with the link to it. It'd have to be a leap of faith. I'm not saying I'm putting the fight up there, because I'm not, but it might be able to be arranged. And instead of going on all these websites and looking for it and having it shut, you'd be watching it, we're in the 3rd round, all of a sudden it gets shut down, and you have to jump to another channel, and then all these people chatting, making it slow, and all this other kind of stuff. There'd be none of that. If there was, tell me on my channel, on this video, how many of you would risk $5 and a 44-cent stamp to try it? I'm just curious, I'm just taking a poll. Because I know they're giving back $30 rebate if you buy a $20 case of Tecate. I'm not going to rain on anybody's parade, but that's not my beer of choice for this fight. And I think Shane Mosley deserves a payday more than just about everybody else out there. How does the Islander see this fight going? Let me be clear about this. I find it hard to believe that Mayweather is going to lose this fight. He can play keep away with the best of them. He can nullify any type of extended action that he doesn't want to occur. And I really think that Mosley's going to have to pretty much put some serious hurt on him early in the fight, kind of like Zab Judah did, and then sustain it. Because if there's one thing that, even though the liar wants you to believe he's the greatest of all time, one of the things that he does very well that he doesn't get credit for is that he makes adjustments on the fly. And he's done it in all his fights. with the exception of the first Jose Luis Castillo fight. But he makes adjustments on the fly. And in this fight, I expect Mosley to come out pretty strong. It's the adjustments that Mayweather makes in the middle of the fight, and whether Mosley can cope with them, that's going to be the difference. Personally, I really can't see this fight being any closer than a 115, 113, or a 116, 112 kind of a thing for Mayweather. I just think that Mosley is going to put on a good show. I think that Mayweather's got the answers, and it may be dull at times, it may be boring at times, or for all we know, maybe Mayweather will, Mayweather usually performs very well when he's in the most danger. Arturo Gatti against Philip Endu, against Diego Corrales. I wouldn't say that against Jose Luis Castillo, because I thought he lost the first fight, and he definitely bitched out in the second fight. There ain't no two ways about it. And don't tell me, all you nut huggers, that it was, oh, great boxing and this, that. No, it was fucking bitching out is what it was. Pardon my language, everybody, I'm sorry. He bitched out in that fight. But against Corrales, against Gennaro Hernandez, against Angel Manfredi, against Diego Corrales, I know these are all 10 years old. I know what you're thinking. Against Philip Endu, and against Arturo Gatti, he manned up. He was in danger. I mean, he was in danger in all those fights, and he manned up. I wouldn't be surprised if he does in this. I guess I would be surprised if he does it in this fight, because once he got to the pay-per-view status, like all fighters, they start protecting what they already have, and we never get the best out of them. So my thing is this: I expect Mayweather to win a decision. The most likely scenarios: Mayweather. If I said that wrong, Mayweather by a decision. Mayweather decision, Mosley decision, Mosley stoppage, right there with a Mayweather stoppage. A draw, maybe somewhere in the middle also. 24/7. I've been watching it, and, I've got a real fondness for Nazeem Richardson. I didn't, with the Margarito stuff, thinking that he was just playing games like he did with Felix Trinidad, just making him rewrap his hands. Regardless of whether anything was in there, I had it in my mind that they were going to make him rewrap his hands anyway, like they did to Felix Trinidad. It's an old game that the old-time trainers used to do. But the way he views the sport and life in itself, I really have a great deal of respect for. I really think also in watching that, never mind what Mosley says, I think Mayweather does have a genuine respect for Mosley, and I think that you're going to see that in the fight, and it may make the fight duller than it would ordinarily have been, unless, like Richardson says, because he knows things. He knows that Mayweather's going to be forced to fight at some point in the fight, and it's whether or not Mosley can ante up and step on the dragon's tail, when the dragon starts breathing fire. If I had the choice of being hit by one of them with a clean shot, I'd rather be hit by Mayweather than I would by Mosley. Let's just be clear about it. I just don't think Mosley's got what it takes, meanness-wise, street mean-wise, to do to Mayweather what Sandy Sadler did to Willie Pep. You've got to have a real nasty streak in you, the old-time nasty streak in you, to really unnerve him. I mean, what I'm talking about is, you're getting close, and he puts his elbow in your throat. You take the heel of your glove and you rub it up his face. And if the referee says it's too bad, he's using illegal tactics. Mosley won't do that. You or I might do that to Mayweather, but he won't do that. Pacquiao, I doubt, would do that either. But it's going to take somebody, special to do that. To heal him and to use all the tricks in the book that that Mayweather's willing to use. I mean, that elbow in the throat is illegal. I mean, and all those of you who say he's trying to keep his head off, great. If he was in with me and he did that, it'd be the heel and the laces of my gloves rubbing up and down his face and eyes, nose. I mean, old-time stuff. But that's going to about do it for this episode, as we're running again to 20 minutes. I'm going with Mayweather in this fight by a decision. And those of you who think I hate him, I haven't picked against him yet. That's going to do it, everybody. Thanks a lot. And let me know what you think about that $5 to watch pay-per-view on the internet things. I'm really curious to what you guys think. We'll see you after the fight.